Trump backed down. That was the New York Times headline today when Trump backed down, as predicted exactly 24 hours ago on this program. I mean, I didn't say it was going to be today. I didn't know that. But I did say the only way this was going to end, the only way was with Donald Trump backing down in the next few days, I suggested last night, or in a few months. The moron, as Elon Musk calls him, was nowhere to be seen in the media opportunities at the White House surrounding the great event of Donald Trump backing down today. Donald Trump's tariff advisor, Peter Navarro, was reportedly not in the room in the Oval Office when Donald Trump was composing his tweet that would revive the stock market today. But Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was. And it was the Treasury Secretary standing alone beside the White House press secretary in the White House driveway for the dramatic televised version of the announcement heard around the world today. In what turned out to be the biggest media day of the year at the Trump White House, Elon Musk was nowhere to be seen. Elon Musk was silent today about the biggest news that Donald Trump has made in his presidency. Donald Trump backing down from his trade war was even bigger news than Donald Trump starting his trade war. And Elon Musk was silent about what Donald Trump did today. Yesterday, Elon Musk was calling Donald Trump's chief tariff advisor, Peter Navarro, a moron and saying that he was, quote, dumber than a sack of bricks. And then, of course, apologizing for insulting bricks. Yesterday, Elon Musk was enlisting his little brother to attack Peter Navarro and Donald Trump about the Trump tariffs directly. But today, Elon Musk was silent. But Kimball Musk was not silent. Kimball Musk, as we have reported to you, is Elon Musk's younger brother, who is a wholly owned subsidiary of Elon Musk and a member of the Tesla board, which means he is unlikely to ever say a word publicly that his older brother and boss does not approve of. And I mean word for word. At 9:47 a.m., a little more than 3 hours before Donald Trump announced that he was backing down, Kimball Musk attacked directly by name J.D. Vance and Donald Trump on Twitter. Kimball Musk identified a tweet by J.D. Vance saying, "It's bizarre to see all the limousine socialists screech desperately for dependence on Chinese supply chains and inflated equities. The Musk brothers and Tesla are entirely dependent on Chinese supply chains." And so Kimball Musk replied to J.D. Vance saying, "Republicans for higher prices. How about that? This Trump tariff tax has driven prices for everyday goods through the roof. J.D. Vance, I read your book. It's good. I'd think you'd have more sympathy for your community's cost of living. Inflation sucks for everyone, but it especially hits our underserved communities the most. And we all know how much the Musk brothers worry about our underserved communities who cannot afford to buy Teslas." So there's the Musk team at 9:47 a.m. calling it the Trump tariff tax and saying J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are now the leaders of Republicans for higher prices. Why did Elon Musk shy away from the Twitter battle this morning? When did Elon Musk know that his stock price was going to start climbing back up today because Donald Trump was going to announce that he was backing down? The potential for insider trading on that information today was unlimited. Donald Trump all but admitted that it was in the middle of the night last night that the bond market scare made him realize that his time was up.
Was it the bond markets that persuaded you to reverse course?
I was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
Of course, he doesn't actually understand the bond market. They weren't getting a little queasy. It was panic, justifiable panic. And the president's morning TV diet didn't help.
Did you speak with anyone? You know, Jamie Dimon, did you speak with anyone?
Well, I watched Jamie Dimon on Maria Bartiromo's show this morning, and he was very good.
Here is what Donald Trump heard the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, tell him this morning about what was coming if he didn't back down.
How significant would you expect that? Do you personally expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because markets, I mean, when you see a 2,000 point decline, it sort of feeds on itself, doesn't it? Because it makes you feel like you're losing money in your 401k, you're losing money in your pension.
So imagine Donald Trump with all those White House breakfast pastries spread out in front of him, watching Jamie Dimon and Maria Bartiromo agree that a recession is coming thanks entirely to Donald Trump. The Trump recession had already had a name. As much as Donald Trump loves naming everything after himself, that's the one thing he never wanted named after him, the next recession. But the chances of a recession are still high because after Donald Trump backed down, Goldman Sachs reduced the chances of a recession from 65% down to 45%, which is still dangerously high and much higher than it was on Donald Trump's inauguration day, when exactly no one was predicting a recession was even possible, thanks to the Biden economy that Donald Trump inherited and lied about today.
Joe Biden handed us over a country that was in very serious trouble economically.
Joe Biden handed him the greatest economy any president has ever handed another president. The stock market crash created by Donald Trump could only be reversed by Donald Trump backing down. Donald Trump has twice now proved beyond a reasonable doubt, including today, that the stock market crash was all about him. The first time he proved it was Monday, when CNBC reported on a rumor floated on Twitter that Donald Trump was considering a 90-day pause in his worldwide tariff madness. We showed you how that drama unfolded on CNBC in real time on Monday for about 20 minutes. When the stock market believed that rumor, the stock market just shot straight up. And then CNBC's reliable White House reporter Eamon Javers reported that the White House press secretary denied that rumor, and that denial then sank the stock market immediately once again. 2 days later, with the stock market in more danger than ever after a terrifying turn of events in the bond market overnight, Donald Trump announced on Twitter that he was backing down. He announced his 90-day pause that we all know is a forever pause. If you were awake after midnight last night watching Bloomberg's live coverage of what was happening in the bond market overnight around the world, you saw some very dark predictions for what was to come in the stock market today. We know Donald Trump, the admitted insomniac, was awake after midnight when the bond market was crashing. He was probably on the phone with his Treasury Secretary then, who was surely advising him that it was time to give up and back down. And so probably from the approximately midnight last night until 1:18 p.m. today, when Donald Trump announced that he was backing down, Donald Trump, and who knows how many other people in and around the White House, knew that Donald Trump was going to back down. That means they were in possession of the most valuable investment inside information in the world. And that is why some senators were wondering today just how much insider trading might have been going on in and around the Trump White House before Donald Trump made his announcement that sent the stock market skyrocketing back up, but not all the way back up to where it was before Donald Trump started his economic death march of the last 7 days.
Absolutely. I'm writing to the White House to demand who knew in advance that the president was going to once again flip-flop on tariffs, and are people cashing in? There is just all too much opportunity for people in the White House and the administration to be insider trading, and you can't put it past them for a minute. So we're going to try to find out.
This administration is replete with grifters. Corruption is its middle name. And I have no doubt that an investigation of stock dealing, as well as potentially other investments, is going to reveal deep corruption in this administration. Insider trading is a real threat here, and I hope there will be a searching, penetrating investigation into the potential for manipulation and insider trading of securities.
In the war of Donald Trump versus the world, Donald Trump lasted much longer than I thought he would at the beginning of his war. He lasted almost a full 7 days. I didn't expect Donald Trump to keep fighting his war after 1 day of the stock market crashing. I didn't think Donald Trump was crazy enough to accept even 1 full day of the stock market crashing, but I was wrong about that. In the House Ways and Means Committee today, Congressman Stephen Horsford asked the person who is supposed to be in charge of international trade policy in the administration, but is not, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, if what we were watching today was the manipulation of the stock market so that some people could have a very good day in that stock market.
We have people that are planning to send their kids to college this fall. People who are retiring whose benefits have declined. Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
It's not market manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
We're trying to reset the global trade system.
That's
offshored all of our factories.
And what has that done? How have you achieved any of that? But to enact enormous harm on the American people, which was our concern from the very beginning. Tariffs are a tool. It can be used in the appropriate way to protect U.S. jobs and small businesses. But that's not what this does. So if it's not market manipulation, what is it? Who's benefiting? What billionaire just got richer? And all the while, there are not even any Republicans left in this hearing. They all left because they don't even want to defend this. But meanwhile, the Speaker is rushing to the floor to pass a budget reconciliation to screw America by passing the biggest tax cut in history on the backs of the American people. WTF? Who's in charge?
It seems if anyone can be said to be in charge, it is Elon Musk. One day after Elon Musk called Donald Trump's tariff advisor a moron, without saying that makes Donald Trump a moron for following a moron's advice, which is the obvious implication, Donald Trump started following Elon Musk's advice, and he backed down. As I said last night, Donald Trump, if he managed to sleep after learning about what was happening in the bond market, was going to have to try to fall asleep knowing that he was probably next. That if Elon Musk was calling Donald Trump's tariff advisor a moron, the next logical person for Elon Musk to call a moron was the person taking the moron's advice. And Donald Trump was not prepared to live more than 24 hours of suspense of when Elon Musk might start calling him a moron. And so Elon Musk, in his public silence today, got Donald Trump to do what he wanted him to do today. But Elon Musk is not finished. Elon Musk needs Tesla to be exempted from the tariffs on goods coming into this country from China, because assembling a Tesla in the United States involves using components built in China.
Sir, would you consider exempting some U.S. companies, maybe some larger companies who have been hit hard in the markets the last few days during this 90 days?
As time goes by, we're going to take a look at it. There are some that have been hard. There are some that, by the nature of the company, get hit a little bit harder, and we'll take a look at that, yeah.
How do you determine it the next 90 days?
Just instinctively, more than anything else.
So how are you going to determine which companies will be allowed to import goods from China without a tariff on them? And the answer is instinctively. That's what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump's going to do it in a way where there will be no rules at all for how he does it. There will be no legal process for how he does it. Donald Trump's going to do it instinctively. That was his word. In other words, Donald Trump is going to do it for the richest person in the world who has given him more money than anyone alive. Donald Trump is going to instinctively make sure that Tesla is able to import whatever it needs to import from China without the burden of the Trump tariffs. Donald Trump said, quote, "We're going to take a look at it. There are some that have been hit hard. That means Tesla. There are some that by the nature of the company get hit a little bit harder. That means Tesla. And we'll take a look at that," he said. "We'll take a look at that." Yeah. And so, on what may have been the day that saw more insider trading in Washington than any other day in history, we embarked on the beginning of the most corrupt possible arrangements for deciding what companies will not have to pay the Trump tariffs on which goods imported from which countries. Lobbyists will make hundreds of millions of dollars this year alone lobbying the Trump White House on that very issue. And Elon Musk will be lobbying Donald Trump directly, right in his ear, while Elon Musk can remain, as he did today, publicly silent.